Hello, Kate and I are getting together to just have a little chat here. We were going to do it on TikTok, but it wasn't working. So yeah, we'll put this out all over so everybody can join in.
Yeah, I'm excited. And you know what? It seems like on par for the energy this week, right? Just like all the unknown and then like the details and all of that. So as you can see, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get ready for this. That didn't happen today, and I don't even care at this point. Like I'm just the fact that I'm here and I'm upright and I'm just like getting through the days this week has literally been like all I can do. And I have to say that even today for me, the energy is much lighter. And I don't know if you ever experienced this with the people you work with, Angela, but and maybe this is just me and my weird brain like thinking too much about things, but I kind of feel a lot of times like the energy, like I feel the energy like several days before, where a lot of people are feeling it like day of, maybe day, but I feel like I'm in touch with it quite a bit before. And so I'm kind of like experiencing it and then coming to like the end of the process or, like moving through it a little bit sooner. And I don't know if that's true or if that's just in my head, but I keep kind of like thinking about it like over the last year, and probably the last 6 months is when I've gotten a little bit deeper into astrology myself and just kind of trying to intuitively understand it. And I feel like that comes up for me a lot where sometimes I'll be like, oh, what's going on? And then I'll be like, oh, like that makes sense. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have an Aquarius rising, which Aquarius is the sign of like future thinking, having a little bit more of a detached, higher vision of, like what's coming in the future and future, everything having to do with future. So that could make sense. Also, you've got all that scorpionic energy, which can definitely, like, it's a deep feeler, but it's so sensitive as well. So you have a lot of, I would say, ability to sense it before everybody else. People that have like a lot of earth in their chart and things, or a lot of fixed energy, will just be like, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. And that's why my husband, he has a Taurus moon, and he's always just like, nothing's happening, it's fine, it's fine. Like,
ah,
no, they're, waiting until the energy kind of hits them over the head. But yeah, you've got a lot going on. We can jump into a little bit of like what's going on for everybody, but just for you in general, um, Pluto just moved into your first house, which is the planet of transformation. Really, like it's going to make you really attractive and dynamic and all those things, but it's also very like, let's rip away everything that's not working here.
yeah.
And so I just started, yeah, it kind of tiptoed last year and then went back into Capricorn, and now is pretty solidly in your first house, which the first house is always self, the body, the self, the who am I? And everything else in the chart is more like, my siblings, my parents, my home, my job, my career, all things are kind of outside of you. The first house is really inside of you, like, who are you? And so when we have these really transformative planets in that first house, it's intense, but it's a really exciting time as well, because you know that you're getting to rip away everything and really be the best version of yourself. It's just a little bit uncomfortable. So you already have that going on. We also, and so that's for everybody, right? Everybody can look at, not everybody having it in their first house, but everybody having Pluto in Aquarius. So we can look at where that's interacting. It's a new thing for the next 20 years. So where that's interacting. And then I love to look at the other outer planets, which is like Jupiter and Uranus, and that's in Taurus. So it's been very interesting. Taurus is very much like the body. It's food, it's the body, it's finances, it's creature comfort, right? and I just keep hearing all of this stuff about like somatic work and all the like body work. And, all those things are really strong right now while Jupiter and Uranus have been in Taurus. So we're thinking about that. Like, how are we taking care of the body? How are we taking care of our food? We can see some fluctuating prices with food right now. Food's gone up a lot, right? In the last however long. And then we'll get some surprising changes here in April, late April, when that Uranus Jupiter conjuncts in Taurus and shows us, maybe a new way to do things, right? So it'll be really interesting. And then, so right now we have, if we go a little bit lower into the personal planets, we have Venus and Mars, which masculine, feminine. Mars is cutting, and it's kind of like that, like warrior energy, and Venus is like the beauty and the feminine, and those just conjoined, which anytime they conjoin, it's like marrying that energy. It's the masculine and feminine within ourselves. It's our relationships with other people, could be relationships with finances, could be relationships with, all of the different things. But so that just happened a few days ago, and it's still really close together for this full moon that's coming tomorrow. And that's in your first house. So that's a very internal process for you right now, like the cutting away, the feminine, the what do I want, like all of that kind of internal processing that's going on with you, with Pluto there. So that's very intense. But it's felt intense for everything. It's in my relationship house. The moon is going to do this full moon in Virgo, which is very much, Virgo is getting things done and organization and all of that stuff. And we just did a remodel on our bathroom, and it was supposed to take like one day, and then it was going to be 2 days, and now it started on Monday and it's still not done. My house has, construction dust, and I still don't have a shower, and so that and I'm feeling it very much in the relationship, right? Like my husband said it was going to be done. He's stomping around, mad that it's not working. It's just felt really uncomfortable in that relationship house, but this is happening within you, so everybody that's listening to this would look at like, where is this happening in my chart? Where's Aquarius in my chart? Where's Virgo in my chart? Where's Pisces? Because that's where the sun is. That's where, Neptune and Saturn, and Mercury just moving into Pisces. So we have a lot of confusion going on in the collective because, Mercury and Pisces, my son is a Pisces, and it's just like, I want this. No, I want this. I'm not sure. It's a very like, I want to go this way and I want to go this way. And then that moon's going to be opposite of the sun and Mercury. So the sun and Mercury in Pisces, of this unsure, where am I going? What am I doing? And then that Virgo moon likes to know, right? Like it likes the details. It likes to know. It wants to be comfortable. So it could be a little bit of an uncomfortable full moon, right? Full moon is already energized. We're already kind of moody. And then we've got this kind of dichotomy of all of that going on. So how's all that feeling for you, feeling all this energy?
Yeah, it's feeling like a lot. And it's so funny. So there's a few things that have come up for me this week. You were talking about the Mars and Venus and that type of energy and kind of the masculine and the feminine. I was the other night when I was in bed and I was reading, the thought, and this has kind of come up to me several times this week, I was thinking about some of the like Egyptian goddesses like Sekhmet, Bastet, and how the Egyptian goddesses have like these two sides of them, right? Where there's like this fierce darkness, like really strong, powerful energy. But then there's also this, soft, light, caring, nurturing aspect of them. And depending on, kind of like what you do, or what you do to them, you get one or the other, right? Yeah. There's not necessarily like this commingling of energy in between. It's like you either get the wrath and the dark,
Yeah.
or you get the light, the nurturing, like soft energy. And that idea has come up a lot for me this week personally. And also just like getting a little bit more comfortable with tapping into that darker energy and not seeing it as like this bad thing or this evil thing or this destructive thing, but rather it being more of like being within my own power and having boundaries and assertion and all of that, and how really like tapping into that darker part of ourselves should be something that we learn how to do rather than run away from, right? And that can be through tapping into darker experiences, and instead of going into kind of this sad like victim mentality of it, we use it as fuel to transmute that energy into something good. But during the process of that transmutation, it probably doesn't look very nice, right? Like it looks dark, it feels dark, and it could, I don't want to say like, I don't think we have to necessarily like project that on to anyone, but more about projecting that inward into ourselves, right? Like, how can I take this and just transmute it into the thing that I want, or use it as fuel for my power? Because something that I think I've learned personally and have been tapping in more and more into this year is that my actual power lies within the darkness. It's not within the light. The light is something completely different. And I think that, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, that darkness is something that we're typically afraid of. And we don't want to tap into it because it's like, oh my God, what if I'm like this bad person or whatever? But I think it's completely necessary, right? To tap into the power. So I see that kind of Mars and Venus coming together, if we're looking solely at the self, kind of honoring both of those parts and allowing them to be separate but work together, right? To create this better version of ourselves and kind of have these almost like two personas that we're very comfortable with, that we can easily maneuver back and forth from depending on the energy, the situation, like what needs done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking about too that Mars rules your moon and your Pluto. And so for the Pluto to be in that first house, for Mars and Venus to be in that first house, this is, yeah, that's a really beautiful way of you came across this book and you're reading it right at this time where you've got this kind of intersection going within you. And you do have dark, I mean, if we look at Mars, it's the warrior, this very strong energy, right? If we think about the new tradition or the modern rulership of Pluto goes into the dark and shines the light, right? Like Pluto is not afraid to go to the underworld. Pluto is not afraid to, lift up the rock and see the bugs underneath, or lift up, like it's not afraid to see what's underneath things, the underbelly of society, the underbelly. So being safe within yourself to really even go within yourself and see the darkness and put light to it. And then your Venus is in Leo, which is all about self-love, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it can be like, look at me, show me how wonderful I am, but it's because I'm such a open-hearted, beautiful person that's trying to reflect that on you, right? Like trying to reflect that self-love. When you show up and you love yourself exactly how you are, the darkness and everything, that gives other people the permission to do the same. So you're really in a good spot for marrying these two. And this is a 2-year conversation. They touch every 2 years. So you have this kind of 2-year conversation to really look at it and to work with it. And yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting. So that's one thing that's coming up. And then, and I don't know if, how you're feeling this within yourself, but so much purging, so much like there are things that have come up for me this last week. Like I have journaled so much. I've done some really deep meditations where like I have been in it and I have cried and just sobbed deeper than I have probably since like the summer, right? When I had a lot of other things like going on in my life. And it's things that like, it's those, you know, kind of those layers, right? Of these things where it's like, oh, I thought I really understood this. And this week it's been like, no, you actually didn't understand it at all. Like, let's recognize this and like get rid of it. And so that ripping away, I mean, I'm even in this position right now where I'm kind of like, even with like the space that I'm in, the city that I'm in, like I'm looking at all these different options right now and nothing is certain. Everything is very unknown. And I'm even looking at like selling everything I own and like moving to a completely different state, right? And I'm like, I don't know if that's quite what I desire, right? And I've also noticed too that like in the past when I've kind of had those moments and things come up, I would be so quick to be like, okay, girl, we're doing this, right? Without like giving it patience and giving it pause. And right now, even though the pause is extremely uncomfortable because there really is no known solution or I think even right way to go, I'm just kind of like, no, like I need to sit in this pause and kind of allow a few more things to unfold. Because
Yeah.
I do also, I think, and that's why I think too, like really right now going within, right? Like not seeking this outside validation. Like I think there's an awareness of outside of what's going on and astrology and everything like that. But for me personally, and what I would encourage other people to do, especially if you're kind of feeling, you know, like I am in the depths of all the things that I'm feeling, right? Is looking at how you can just kind of tap back into self and your intuition and your own knowing rather than being like, oh, well, the astrology says this. So it's like, because when we're looking outside of ourselves, we're trying to put answers to the unknown. And I feel like, especially for me right now, this is like about the unknown.
Yeah.
And I also feel like while this year I've had a lot of challenge, a lot of struggle in my personal life, in my business life, in all of these things, I also have this really deep knowing that that all is about to shift. And I have no idea how it's shifting or anything like that because everything that I've tried to do, that I've went outside myself to do, like isn't working. And
Yeah.
I've kind of just like been in this space of like, I don't really give a fuck anymore. Just like whatever happens, happens. So it's like allowing, instead of feeling like I need to make all these like sharp decisions, saying, okay, what can I do right now in this moment to get me where I need to be tomorrow or within, you know, in the next couple days,
Yeah.
and then seeing what comes of that and kind of being a little bit more in tune, instead of, you know what I mean, like trying to push something forward because it's like I'm feeling so close, like to the end of a chapter, to the end of, I would even say like a book, like not even like a chapter, but like the end of a book. And it's like I don't want to make hasty decisions in this place of unknown, in this place of being extremely uncomfortable, to then possibly regret it later, right? Like I'd rather have more factual information in front of me. I'd rather see like, okay, like how's March going to play out? How's this going to play out, right? And then move with more intention and more facts and more knowing in
Yeah.
the physical reality. And
Yeah.
I think that's why, you know, I know that it's probably easier for me to kind of have this time of going within because I live by myself, right? I don't have to be around people necessarily. So it's easier to just kind of tap in here. But I
Yeah.
think as much as you can go within, because not everyone is going to understand that, right? Like if I told just anyone about my personal circumstances, everything, they'd be like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you need to do this, and this. And I'm like, well, I've kind of already done this, and this, and it's not working. So, like, intuitively, I know I just need to pause and go within and allow. And I think a lot of people are feeling that right now, and probably many different ways. Like, it might not be as strong as I'm feeling it, or like it might be in different aspects, right? Like, you're talking about kind of your relationship and everything. I'm kind of feeling this in like in everything.
Yeah.
So I think as much as we can kind of find some time to go inward, the better, right? Tapping into our own knowing and shutting out
Yeah.
what's trying to tell us, you know.
I mean, it's Pisces season, and I never make decisions in Pisces season, right? Like for me, Pisces is very much I'm unsure, and you're kind of closing all of these things, and you have this on top of because you're 35 right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so September you turn 36. So right now you're letting go of you're in a 12th house perfection year. That's like go within, let go, completion of 12 houses. Like I mean, it's so wild how in touch you are with like the energy that's going on in your chart, right? Like the 12th house, you know that this chapter is ending. It's probably going to end around September, right? You've got this whole
Right.
new chapter, right? Right now it's Pisces season. You'll probably get a little bit more clarity with Aries season. It's a little bit more cardinal, right? But yeah, I think that anybody that's feeling this kind of crazy energy, going within is the only thing we can do. I saw a quote that talked about, if there's storms, being on top of the water, you're going wild, but you go to the bottom of the ocean and it's calm, right? Like, go to the calm, get in the calm so you can make a decision, so you can make a direction without the wind blowing you and everything going crazy. Get some clarity from within. And so, yeah, that's really beautiful. Yeah, just for anybody that's listening to this before the full moon, just don't make any real big decisions. You're going to be uncomfortable probably, right? Like decisions aren't really to be made right now. We're seeing what's working. We're seeing what's not working, and we're going to give it some time to clarify before we make any big decisions.
And are you seeing anything, or what are you seeing at astrology wise, of when we're going to start to, feel like we can make decisions, right? Like, what's kind of the energy around that? Is it like once Pisces season is completely over, we kind of like, as we're moving into March, the equinox, like all of those things, where are we maybe energetically feeling a sense of a little more certainty or a little bit more direction?
Yeah, even in the next few weeks, Mercury's going to, move forward, and it's going to hit Saturn, and Saturn is usually a nice steady, maybe you get some this and this needs to be done. Maybe you get some directions like I need to do this and this. But yeah, for me, it just feels better for cardinal season, that Aries, when it moves in about a month. That's when I feel like I'm going to have a lot more clarity, but it doesn't mean I'm not doing anything with the prompts that are coming. Like you said, you're clarifying. I just randomly had somebody that was on my podcast reach out about doing some healing, ancestral healing work, and I went into this really crazy she just like I don't even know. It's using these sacred symbols to like clear ancestral, and it was wild. My body was going crazy for like the last 2 days. I could feel like the shedding of skin and layers that I didn't even really, I knew were there mentally, but I couldn't access them in my body. And now I'm like, oh my gosh. So yeah, it's definitely a good healing. Pisces always feels like a really good healing. Pisces, Virgo are both very healing. So it feels like a very healing, a very good time to kind of clear. And then, the spring equinox is coming. What do we want? We want to take action, right? We want to take action when when springtime comes and the sun's out more, you know, we're getting more sunshine and things like that. So I think that's the time. Even I saw that you were doing a lot of like minimalism and things like that. A great time to start clearing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's such a good, and for so many people, we just naturally get in touch with that energy, right? We're preparing for the equinox, we're preparing for spring, for new beginnings, of the wood energy, of this new growth and everything like that. And I think it's so important to kind of, again, heed your own intuition. Like if you're feeling the need to get rid of things and clean things and organize things, like that's natural right now, right? We're coming out of winter, we're getting ready to go into spring, and we're in that really nice time of like intuitively wanting to do that, to purge and everything like that. And so I would encourage people to do that. And if you're having trouble, or like you need a little bit of guidance, I am doing a virtual like decluttering workshop on March 10th. And if you go to my website, homesliceliving.com, click on events, you'll see it and you can register for it. But I find that some people just need like a little bit of oomph, right? And I think it's so important to really understand like what clutter is, because we often think that it's like, oh, well, I have this, my kids' toys, or this and that. Like to me, like that's not clutter, because those things are being used, they're being utilized. And that's more about being in a season of your life, much like astrology pulls us through these different seasons of our life. Our home does the same thing.
Yeah.
And so one thing that like I think with social media, and I see this changing so much over the next several years, but we're fed this idea of just perfectionism, and everything's perfect and everything's put away in the home edit, and everything needs to be labeled and clear bins, and you have like all this extra stuff that you don't freaking need, right? Just so it's aesthetically pleasing. And I hate all of that. Like I don't like it. And I'm also not someone that's like minimalism. Yeah, you should have nothing. Like I don't feel like that either. I think you should have things that you love, that you use, and that serve you, right? And that's going to be a different amount of stuff for everyone. That's going to look different for everyone depending on what season they're in. And it's like, I find so many women, especially, that beat themselves up for having clutter. And then we talk about it, and I'm like, I wouldn't consider that clutter. Like that's you living your everyday life. That's not bad, like, right? But they're beating themselves up, telling themselves like, oh my God, this is so bad,
Yeah.
right? When really it's just like, no, this is like your life, right? And if it's something that bothers you, then to me it's like implementing some sort of simple system that allows those things to get put away more often, right? Because so often I find that like people have a spot for things, like they really, they're doing a really good job, but because of this image that we're fed through social media and everything like that, they shame themselves. And I'm like, oh no, like I wouldn't consider that clutter at all. That's you living your life. And does it bother you if this is out when you wake up in the morning or whatever? Like, if the answer is no, hey, no, it doesn't. I clean this up every few days or on the weekends, and I'm fine with that. Then there's no issue,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's like right now we're being called to, and I think right now we're being called to do a couple of things. Is one, addressing the things that aren't serving us, right? That are kind of feeling like a burden, or we're noticing things more that like we don't love in our space, that maybe hold, negative energy or memories or something like that. And we're also being called to kind of create different systems to get the outcome that we're looking for. And so that's really like, I think having that discussion and learning the difference between those things, like not only helps people feel much better about where they're at on a day-to-day basis, but also gives like a foundation for not really having to deal with clutter again, right? Because like once you understand this underlying energy to it and meaning to it, it puts everything in a much different perspective. And again, like I think that's what's going on just internally, externally, like on all levels, right?
Yeah.
And tapping into that can be really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that everybody's kind of moving into this Plutonian. Let's look at an individual level. We both have Venus in Leo, so we both always kind of think about like, let's look at self-love, right? Let's love what works for you. So I just think it's all a beautiful message that we're trying to kind of share in all ways. Like that's what I do with my work in astrology and human design, is like, how do I love who I am? Like, let's just look at it really, really down to that minutia of like, okay, I can love every part of me, just like your Scorpio moon and your, you know, that like, let me look in the darkness, let me be okay with that. And so, yeah, I just see this picture arising of that being shared on the level that you work. And that's what I'm sharing on the level that I work. And hopefully we can keep helping people to really love exactly where they're at and who they are, and just embrace what the individual and not what it looks like out there, right? Because that's going to get
Yes.
messy for everybody over the next couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like it's the beginning of us really being called to go within and figure out what works for me.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we're both being called to that in different ways in our business. I know for me, it's caused me to completely reimagine my business and say, okay, like, because I think people are looking less for people to follow and more for people as a resource, as education, because we kind of want to take all these things that we're learning
Yeah.
and implement them ourselves and
Yeah.
have our own take on it and our own, and not feel like, okay, Kate said this, Angela said this, and da 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 da. Right? It's more about receiving the information and kind of sitting with it and then saying, okay, how does this work for me?
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing that so much in my business and my community, which has caused such a shift for me, right? Because for the longest time it was like one-on-one clients, one-on-one clients, one-on-one clients. And I'm finding that like that's not working for me or necessarily, clients anymore, right? They're more like, okay, no, I want to learn all these things and then
Yeah.
I want to just like do it myself.
Yeah.
Right? And I love that. I think that's really where we should be, instead of, placing all of this hierarchy or this power into someone that we see as, more knowledgeable, more in tune than we are. And I see this as someone, I went through this many times, especially once I got more into spiritualism and things like that, where you see people that you think are so much more tapped in than you, and it's just so stupid because it's literally like we all have the same ability in different expressions. And once we're really good, again, like tapping in internally, we start to look less at the people outside of us as being able to get something that we can't. And
Yeah.
we more look at them and like, oh, okay, I like how they explained this, or I like how they did this. Like, I'm going to try that. Does it work for me? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And I really, I think that's where we're headed as a whole. And I think that's really amazing, because that to me builds a much more communal relationship rather than this like celebrity, this thing that's out of reach, this ability, this person that's out of reach, and is so much more like, ooh, how can we learn something together? How can I learn from you and then play around with it, right?
Yeah. 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 Building your community with people that are really embracing and doing the things that you love, and finding your little niche is really where we're going, and what we need to focus on. And I even this year was like, collaborate was my word of the year. And I'm finding all of these wonderful like-minded people, just like I met you this year, and all of the people that I'm meeting. So yeah, set some intentions for how you want your world to look, and then be surprised what shows up.
Yeah, I love that. So we're gonna do this what, every other week,
Yes.
which will be awesome. And I think we've got some topics that we want to cover, and we'll figure out closer to which one we want to do. Maybe in the next couple weeks, maybe that'll be the equinox. Most likely, probably the equinox one where we're talking about that spring, bringing in new energy and all of that. But yeah, I think this was I'm with you where I'm like just trying to call in these really powerful conversations and these connections this year, because that's really, I mean, that's what it's all about, right?
Yes.
So this has been awesome,
Yes.
and I will see you in a couple weeks.
Sounds good. See you soon.